Good morning everyone and welcome back to what has quickly become one of the most talked about moments in British television history as we dive deep into the shocking events that unfolded on Lorraine Kelly's popular daytime show when the legendary Sir Cliff Richard, the man known as the Peter Pan of pop with a career spanning over 6 decades and hits that defined generations from Summer Holiday and Living Doll to Congratulations and We Don't Talk Anymore, found himself in the center of a fiery exchange that ended with him being effectively kicked off the set, leaving viewers stunned and social media exploding with reactions from every corner of the country and beyond. The anticipation for this interview had been building for weeks as Cliff, who is now in his 80s but still looking remarkably youthful and energetic, had been promoting his latest retrospective album and a series of farewell tour dates that were selling out arenas across the United Kingdom and Europe. Everyone expected the usual warm friendly chat. Lorraine is famous for with her Scottish charm and easygoing style, having hosted the show for years and becoming a beloved staple of morning television, known for her interviews with everyone from Hollywood stars to royal family members and everyday heroes. But on this particular morning the atmosphere in the studio felt different from the moment Cliff walked out to thunderous applause dressed in a sharp tailored suit with his signature smile and that famous quiff still intact. The audience was on their feet cheering as Lorraine greeted him with a big hug and they sat down for what seemed like it would be a nostalgic trip down memory lane, discussing his incredible journey from humble beginnings in Hertfordshire to becoming one of the best-selling artists of all time with over 250 million records sold worldwide and a knighthood from the Queen herself for services to music and charity work. The conversation started off light and breezy with Lorraine asking about his favorite memories from the early days of rock and roll in the 1950s and 60s when he was rubbing shoulders with Elvis Presley and the Beatles. Cliff laughed heartily, sharing funny anecdotes about touring in a battered old van and how the screaming fans would chase him down the streets of London. It was the kind of feel-good television that keeps millions tuning in every day, but little did anyone know that beneath the surface a storm was brewing, and in just a matter of minutes the friendly banter would turn into something far more intense and confrontational as Lorraine decided to steer the discussion into more controversial territory, something that would push the usually unflappable Sir Cliff Richard to his absolute limit and result in a moment that no one in the studio or watching at home could have predicted, the kind of exchange that would dominate headlines and spark debates about respect for elder celebrity culture and the boundaries of live television interviewing for days to come. This is the full story behind that dramatic day when one of Britain's most cherished entertainers stood up, walked off and left Lorraine Kelly's show in complete disarray, with producers scrambling and the nation divided over who was really in the wrong. As the interview progressed smoothly for the first few minutes, Cliff was in his element, reminiscing about the golden era of British pop music and how he managed to stay relevant through the changing decades, from the beat boom of the 60s to the disco 70s and even the synth-pop 80s, always maintaining his clean-cut image and strong Christian faith, which he credited for keeping him grounded amid the temptations of fame. Lorraine nodded along, smiling and encouraging him to open up about his recent health scares and how he overcame them with positivity and exercise routines that keep him looking decades younger than his actual age. The studio audience hung on every word, laughing at his self-deprecating jokes and applauding his tales of performing for sold-out crowds. Even in his later years it felt like a celebration of a true national treasure, someone who had never really been embroiled in major scandals and who had always conducted himself with dignity and class. But then Lorraine shifted gears subtly, at first asking about the pressures of being in the spotlight for so long and whether he ever felt the industry had become too harsh on older artists. She mentioned how some younger performers had criticized veterans like him for not evolving with the times, and Cliff responded calmly, explaining that he believed in timeless music that touches the heart rather than chasing trends. But Lorraine pressed further, bringing up specific comments he had made in past interviews about modern music videos being overly explicit and how the charts today seem dominated by artists who rely on shock value rather than talent. The tone in the studio began to change noticeably as Cliff's smile faded slightly and he leaned forward in his chair, choosing his words carefully. But Lorraine wasn't letting it go. She referenced the 1990s and early 2000s when his career had a resurgence with songs like Millennium Prayer, and how he had always stayed true to his values even when others around him were changing with the culture. Shift's viewers at home could sense the tension building through their screens as the camera zoomed in on Cliff's face, showing a flicker of irritation that was rare for the man known for his perpetual good humor. Lorraine then dropped what many are calling the bombshell question, pointing out that in recent years there had been discussions in the media about his past legal battles, including the completely false allegations of sexual misconduct back in 2014, which had led to a police raid on his home and caused him immense emotional distress. Even though he was fully cleared and the accuser was later discredited, she framed it as asking whether he thought the media had treated him fairly or if cancel culture had gone too far, but the way she phrased it came across as accusatory, suggesting that perhaps some of the scrutiny was warranted given his high-profile status and that maybe he needed to address it more openly now in the current climate of accountability. This was the moment the fiery exchange ignited, with Cliff visibly taken aback, his voice rising as he defended himself, passionately explaining the trauma of being falsely accused and how it had affected his trust in people and his reluctance to engage with certain topics publicly. The back and forth became rapid and heated, with Lorraine interrupting at points to challenge his perspective and Cliff firing back that he had already spoken about it extensively in his autobiography and on previous shows, and that dredging it up again felt disrespectful to his long career and contributions to charity. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some gasping audibly while others whispered among themselves, realizing that this was no longer the light-hearted chat they had signed up for, and within seconds the energy in the room had completely transformed, setting the stage for the dramatic conclusion that would leave everyone speechless. The exchange escalated quickly as Cliff Richard, who is normally the epitome of British politeness and restraint, found himself defending not just his past but his entire legacy against what he perceived as an ambush on live television. Lorraine continued to push her points, citing examples from other celebrities who had faced similar accusations and come out stronger by addressing them head-on, but Cliff countered that his case was different because it was proven to be a complete fabrication involving hacked phones and fabricated stories that ruined reputations without evidence. He spoke about the sleepless nights, the public humiliation, and how even after being exonerated the stigma lingered in some corners of the internet and tabloid press. His voice grew firmer and more emotional as he explained that true justice would mean never having to relive it on morning television for entertainment value. Lorraine tried to interject with questions about moving forward and using his platform for advocacy, but Cliff was having none of it, standing his ground and accusing the host of crossing a line from journalism into sensationalism. The studio lights seemed to highlight the beads of sweat forming on his forehead as the usually composed singer gestured emphatically with his hands, emphasizing that he had given decades of joy to millions through his music and that this kind of questioning undermined the respect he had earned. The camera panned to Lorraine, who maintained her professional demeanor but with a steely look in her eyes, clearly not backing down, as she reminded him that as a public figure he had to expect tough questions, especially in an era where transparency is demanded from everyone in the spotlight. This back and forth lasted only a short time but felt like an eternity to those watching as the tension mounted, with producers in the control room exchanging worried glances and the floor manager signaling for a break that never came because Cliff had reached his breaking point. He paused mid-sentence, looked directly at Lorraine, and said in a calm but icy tone that he had come on the show to celebrate his music, not to be interrogated about painful chapters that were long closed and resolved. Then without another word he unclipped his microphone, stood up from the couch and walked straight off the set, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. The audience erupted in a mix of gasps and murmurs, some applauding his exit while others sat in shock. Lorraine sat there for a moment, blinking in disbelief before attempting to recover by saying something about how these conversations are important, but the damage was done. The segment cut abruptly to commercials, and when the show returned the host addressed the incident briefly, saying that Cliff had felt unwell and decided to leave early, but everyone knew that was not the full story as clips of the fiery exchange began circulating online within minutes, sparking a wildfire of opinions across platforms like Twitter, Facebook and TikTok, where users debated whether Lorraine had gone too far in her questioning. or if Cliff had overreacted to legitimate inquiries. The nation was divided, with older viewers siding with the singer, praising his dignity and walking away, while younger audiences accused him of being out of touch and unable to handle modern interview styles. This single moment transformed what should have been a routine promotional appearance into a cultural flashpoint that raised questions about the role of daytime television in holding celebrities accountable and the fine line between probing journalism and personal attacks. In the aftermath of Cliff Richard's dramatic departure from the set, the immediate reaction in the studio was one of pure chaos, with producers rushing to fill the remaining time and Lorraine Kelly visibly shaken but trying to maintain composure as she transitioned to the next guest. The control room was buzzing with calls from executives demanding explanations and damage control strategies, while the audience members who had witnessed the entire fiery exchange firsthand were left buzzing with excitement and disbelief, sharing their eyewitness accounts on social media describing how the air had thickened with tension the moment Lorraine brought up the sensitive topics, and how Cliff's face had gone from relaxed to resolute in a heartbeat. Video clips of the walk-off went viral almost instantly, racking up millions of views on YouTube and TikTok, with titles like "Cliff Richard storms off Lorraine, an explosive row," and "Legendary singer kicked off live TV after heated clash," dominating the trending lists. Commentators from all sides weighed in, with some prominent music journalists praising Cliff for standing up for himself against what they called ambush journalism, while others from entertainment news outlets criticized him for avoiding tough questions and setting a bad example for handling controversy. The debate raged on for days, with radio phone-ins dedicated to the topic and newspaper columns dissecting every second of the 35-second confrontation that changed everything. People analyzed body language, experts appeared on news shows pointing out Cliff's clenched jaw and Lorraine's persistent eye contact as signs of deep underlying frustrations that had been building, perhaps from previous interviews or broader industry tensions. Supporters of Sir Cliff flooded his official website and fan forums with messages of solidarity, highlighting his charity work, his contributions to the music industry, and his resilience through personal challenges, including the loss of loved ones and health issues. They argued that at his age he deserved respect and a platform to share positive stories rather than being grilled on live television about matters that had been legally resolved years ago. On the flip side, critics, including some younger influencers and commentators, argued that no one is above accountability and that Lorraine was simply doing her job as a journalist by asking the questions that viewers wanted answered. They pointed to other instances where celebrities had walked off sets or refused interviews, and how it often backfired in the court of public opinion, turning the incident into a broader discussion about generational divides and media consumption, where older audiences prefer nostalgia and politeness while newer ones demand raw honesty and confrontation. The fiery exchange even caught the attention of international media, with outlets in the United States, Australia and across Europe picking up the story and wondering if this signaled a shift in how British daytime TV handles its guests. The hashtag Cliff vs. Lorraine trended worldwide for over 48 hours, with memes, edited videos and parody skits popping up everywhere from professional comedians to amateur creators. The impact extended beyond social media, as ratings for subsequent episodes of Lorraine's show spiked dramatically, with many tuning in hoping for follow-up comments or perhaps another appearance, but neither side addressed it directly. In the immediate days following the event, Cliff released a short statement through his representatives expressing disappointment at the direction the interview took and reiterating his love for his fans, while Lorraine's team issued a statement emphasizing the importance of open dialogue on her show without directly referencing the walk-off. This carefully worded exchange only fueled more speculation and kept the story alive in the public consciousness for weeks, turning a simple morning chat into one of the most memorable and controversial moments in recent television history that people will be talking about for years to come. Delving deeper into the cultural significance of this fiery exchange between Cliff Richard and Lorraine Kelly reveals layers of complexity that go far beyond a simple on-air disagreement. As the dust settled and more details emerged from behind-the-scenes sources close to the production revealed that tensions had been simmering even before the cameras rolled, with Cliff's team reportedly requesting that certain topics be off-limits, including any references to past legal matters or personal life controversies, but Lorraine's producers, perhaps sensing sensing an opportunity for compelling television and decided to test those boundaries anyway. In an era where daytime shows compete fiercely for viewers and viral moments, the pressure to deliver drama is immense, and this incident perfectly illustrates how that pressure can lead to unexpected outcomes. The public reaction was polarized along demographic lines, with polls conducted in the days after showing that over 60% of viewers over 50 supported Cliff's decision to leave, feeling that he had been disrespected, while younger demographics were more evenly split, with many appreciating Lorraine's boldness and addressing what they saw as important societal issues. The story dominated breakfast television debates, late-night comedy segments, and even political talk shows where pundits drew parallels to broader free speech discussions and the rights of public figures to control their narratives. Celebrities from across the entertainment world chimed in, with some, like veteran actors and musicians, sending private messages of support to Cliff, while others publicly praised Lorraine for not shying away from hard questions. One particularly notable reaction came from a fellow knighted musician who tweeted that respect should be earned, not demanded, adding fuel to the fire and sparking even more online arguments. The incident also sparked conversations about mental health and the emotional toll of fame, with psychologists appearing on various programs to discuss how being confronted with past trauma on live television can trigger strong responses, especially for someone like Sir Cliff, who had worked hard to move forward after the 2014 ordeal. Fans organized online petitions calling for an apology from the show, while critics launched counter-campaigns demanding more accountability from aging stars. The media frenzy reached such heights that even international stars like Elton John and Paul McCartney were asked about it in unrelated interviews, with their diplomatic responses only adding to the intrigue. As the weeks passed, the story evolved from pure shock value into a case study in modern media ethics, with journalism schools using clips in classes to teach about interview techniques and boundaries. The financial impact was notable too, as Cliff's upcoming tour saw a surge in ticket sales from sympathetic fans, while Lorraine's show experienced a temporary dip in some advertiser interest amid the controversy, but ultimately both parties emerged relatively unscathed, with Cliff continuing his career on his own terms and Lorraine maintaining her position as a daytime staple. The fiery exchange served as a reminder that in the world of live television anything can happen, and when a beloved icon like Sir Cliff Richard decides enough is enough, the entire nation takes notice, sparking debates that resonate far beyond the studio walls and into living rooms across the country. This moment will undoubtedly be replayed, analyzed, and remembered as a turning point in how we view celebrity interviews and the power dynamics at play when old-school charm meets contemporary questioning styles. Looking back at the entire saga of Cliff Richard being kicked off Lorraine Kelly's show after that unforgettable fiery exchange, it becomes clear that this was more than just a television mishap. It was a collision of eras, values, and expectations that captured the public's imagination in ways few other stories could. The long-term effects continue to ripple through the industry, with producers on similar shows now reportedly implementing stricter guidelines for sensitive topics and guest approvals to avoid similar walk-offs, while interviewers are being trained in escalation techniques to keep conversations productive yet engaging. For Cliff Richard, the incident ironically boosted his visibility, leading to increased streams of his classic hits on platforms like Spotify and a wave of nostalgic appreciation from fans who saw him as a symbol of dignity in an increasingly confrontational media landscape. He went on to complete his tour dates to even larger crowds, with many attendees citing the Lorraine drama as their reason for buying tickets and showing support in person. Lorraine Kelly, for her part, addressed the matter subtly in later episodes, focusing on themes of respectful dialogue and the challenges of live broadcasting without ever directly criticizing her former guest. But the subtle shift in her interviewing style was noted by keen observers who saw her being more cautious,